no introduction required for me. So basically, I'll just state what I'm going to describe today. So basically, what cloud computing is, I will be talking about that. What are the benefits of cloud computing? What kind of deployment models and service models cloud offers? And then I would be talking about Hadoop, which is what I've extensively worked on. This kind of a data storage in cloud. So what kind of challenges I faced when I started with Hadoop and deployed it in cloud. Then certain basics about cloud testing, what kind of testing we can do, what are the challenges in that, what is the test environment, what kind of considerations we can have while testing. So all that I'm going to describe today. So first, let's start with what cloud computing is. So this is the agenda which I just described. Okay. So this picture actually got it from net and I really found it very interesting. So this is what is actually going on. Whenever I meet people and I ask them that what do you understand by cloud computing? So everybody has a different view. And sometimes the views are very, very funny. So people, actually ask, what is cloud computing? Is it related to cloud in some way? So I really have difficulty in explaining to them that it's nothing related to cloud. It's just a concept because it's omnipresent and it is related to internet. So it's called cloud computing. Okay, so it's like an elephant and three blind men, everybody giving his own judgment about it. Okay, so next. Okay, so what actually cloud computing is? So let me give an example so that it becomes, in a layman's terms, it becomes very clear what it is. So for example, I have a company, okay, and I'm expecting a project. So for that, I'm expecting that I would need 100 machines at least, and say 20 servers and 100 normal machines. So now what happens? I go and I buy those machines. So what are expenditures I need to do? One is capital expenditure. I need to buy those machines. I need to have space to keep them. I need to have, maybe for the servers, I need to have proper cooling for the electricity cost. Maybe it's nominal, but it really counts. Then after that, I need to have people or sysads who are going to actually look after those machines, patch them, and then, maintain those machines. Then I have to buy software licenses for all the software I'm installing on those machines. So all those are the costs which are associated with it. Now what happens when I actually invest in all this and the project doesn't come up? So everything goes down the drain, and what do I do with those machines? So that is one issue which we have when we, and then another thing can be I want to do some R&D. Now I don't want to buy stuff and invest in everything before, I want some ready-made solution, maybe some machines which are ready to use. I just go and do R&D on them and just release those machines. So, all these things, when I take them into consideration, cloud is the answer to it. So, what cloud computing is, I have capacity on demand. So, today I have a requirement that I want 100 machines. Tomorrow, maybe I just require 2 machines, or 20 machines, or 40 machines. So, it's flexible. It's elastic. Whatever I need, I just ask for that. So, that's basically capacity on demand. Then it's pay as you go. So, I pay only for the resources I'm using. I don't pay any extra cost. So, if I use 10, I pay for 10. Okay, that is one thing. Then I have services over the internet. So basically what it is, I want some particular software or I want some particular hardware. So we'll come to it what kind of services cloud offers. But it is like whatever I want, I can demand it. I don't need to procure it on my own. Okay, so I have certain services and it is location independent. So it doesn't matter where my server is, where my machine is. I just log on to internet and I log on to my account and I use it. Okay, so this is a brief what actually cloud computing is. Okay, next. Yeah, so these are the characteristics which are.
Guys, make sure that if you ask questions, because she is in that field for last couple of years, and if you don't understand something, this is your chance to ask. Let this session be very interactive. That would be the only way that we can extract the maximum from you.
And if you feel I'm going too fast, because I usually speak a little fast, so you can stop me in between. Okay, so these are the salient features of cloud. As I explained, one is service management. Like we have services which are being offered to us, we can avail those. We have user metering, so I pay whatever I require, I pay for that. There's a metering going on. Okay, automation, so there are certain stuff which are actually automated. You don't need to go and do everything manually. Okay, then virtualization. Now this is a huge topic in itself, but to put it in one sentence, virtualization is having multiple machines on a single physical machine. Okay. So I can create a test environment on a single machine with different OSs. So my requirement may be to test a Windows machine or Linux machine or some flavor of Linux. So I can have all that on one machine, single machine provision, and I can test on that. So that's virtualization. Then definitely it's cost efficient because I'm just paying for what I need. Then it's flexible and agile because it's kind of elastic. whatever I want, however I want, I can just acquire that much. Yeah. So basically, traditional computing and cloud computing, when I compare those, cloud computing is definitely a 10x improvement in terms of maybe ease of use, scalability, because I can grow and shrink as and when I like. Okay, risk is taken care of. Risk like load failures or load balancing. All those things are automatically done in cloud. There are services provided by say Amazon or Microsoft, whichever provider you are using. So that is not your headache. Then reliability, of course, it is reliable because we have backups and we have highly fault-tolerant systems. So if one of the nodes in the cluster goes down, the other backup comes up. So these things are automated in cloud. Then cost definitely reduces our cost, OPEX cost as well as CAPEX cost.
So, go ahead.
I've got a question. How about the performance? Because when you connect to the internet, there is a bandwidth which is like So how you look after the performance or judge the performance?
See, basically in cloud there are certain pros, there are certain cons. Like you said, performance, it's an issue. I have put it in the challenges tab because it really depends on what kind of internet speed I have. So nothing is in the local environment. I don't have total control over it. It's on the internet. So that's going to be a bottleneck. So that is one thing we need to make sure that we have a good internet connection.
So you guys assess the infrastructure first and then you go ahead with the stuff, or like?
Yeah, see, basically we need to look at what the client, when the client is accessing, say I'm providing some services to the client, okay? So the client has to have a good internet connection to connect to my particular services and services. So that has to be there from the client side.
Say one quick question basically, when we are saying 10x improvement, say for example ease of use, what exactly is cloud? Okay, so can we go a little at a very ground level and tell that what exactly is it and how does it really make things easier for using? Or for just assume that people don't know yet. I'm taking the liberty of speaking like that because people are not asking question. I'm on your behalf. I'm asking that. Okay, pardon me for that. Okay.
Okay. So let me give an example. Is it good to take a small example and in the day-to-day? Okay, I'll give you an example. So basically, say in my organization, I want people to use Lotus Notes. Is everybody familiar with Lotus Notes? It's an IBM product, it's like a mail, right? So I want people to do that. Now, I don't want that on every machine I install Lotus Notes, I pass it, I maintain it. I have to have so many licenses. Okay, so what I do is, this is a simple example, maybe there can be other products that I want to use. So I go to Amazon and I say I want to buy software as a service. So I'll come to it, there are service models in cloud. So software as a service is where I take a software as a service from some vendor. So say Amazon is providing it. So what they do is we'll sign an SLA. SLA is a service level agreement where they say that this can be the downtime for the services, or this is the reliability we are going to provide, this is the cost you will be charged. So it depends on how much data you are accessing, what kind of operations you are doing, you'll be charged. So I sign an SLA, I go and sign up with them. Basically, I create an account, the account will be created for me. I go and log into that account. It's a UI, okay? When we say about cloud services, it's a UI. Like IBM also has its UI, where all the services are listed. So I go and say, choose which service I want to use. So say I want to use Lotus Notes. So I go and say, this is the software which I want to use. So I just click on that, and then that Lotus Notes will be, the UI of Lotus Notes will open. So in layman terms, you get that UI, you get to work on it, and as and when you finish, you just log out. So whatever you use during that time, you will be charged for that. So now, how it eliminates everything is I don't go and install it on every machine, and I'm not bound to my own desktop, because nowadays when we go to our office, we have our desktop, our data is residing on that. We go and log in, and we just start working. So I'm bound to my particular machine, even though we have laptops, but still I'm bound to that laptop. Now here there is no dependency like that. I go to any machine, I just go to Amazon Web Services site, I log in and I use the service.
And the charging model is like, in this case, the Lotus Note is number of total users who are going to access it.
Number of total users, the amount of data I'm uploading, downloading, even that depends.
And the time.
Yes. So everything, the pricing model is actually very complicated. It's not just about the time or the data we are using. There are multiple factors to it. Like, when I'm using a software, I want fault tolerance. So I say how many backups I'm going to keep of my particular, say, DB, and where I'm going to keep. Now, there is some concept of zones also. So Amazon has different zones and different data centers. So backups are kept in one zone. The data is in one zone, the backup is kept in another zone. In that also you can say I want a live backup or a dormant backup.
Hmm.
So again the pricing model changes.
So means that the entire IT team which is managing the server for the Lotus Note for my company would not be there. In this case, the entire Lotus Note is hosted on their servers,
Hosted on their server and
accessed on their servers,
yes,
data is being used on their servers.
yes.
Backup and everything is taken by them.
There. So I don't have any hassle. Yeah.
In which case, Lotus Note client is not required on my
My machine. No, no, no. And there are many things like you have desktop virtualization also. So you can, have a desktop. Your desktop can be accessed from their site also. So that's a different area altogether.
It is
But-
just like taking the remote of another machine.
So in that case, I really don't need to invest in Windows 7 desktop.
Yes.
So I can use that as a service and say that, okay, I've got 100 employees,
Yes.
rather than buying 4,000 rupees license,
Yes.
let me start using it on some other site and give them
Yes.
space, everything there.
As a
And I would have dumb terminals.
Yes, I have dumb terminals.
You have a dumb terminal.
Yes.
Hmm.
We have dumb terminals and we just use their services.
I have understood. We are talking about cloud computing software as a service.
Yes.
Those would for the licensed software of Lotus Notes or IBM or Microsoft. Another concept which is probably thought in this country, example, TCS is being produced for the ABC company. They use the same set of hardware language software licenses for sharing all the three clients.
Yes.
Okay, that was about cloud computing, that understanding reality. There they all the insurance, the silos they create for each of the companies so that the data is secure.
Yes.
There is also form for the same concept of cloud
So you
computing.
are talking about multi-tenancy, is it? So multiple customers are using a particular software instance. So
Yes.
that is what cloud computing offers, a multi-tenancy approach. So the security part of it, so they take care of it because there is a single software instance and there are multiple clients. Maybe clients from X company, Y company and Z company. So their data should not get mixed up. So that is taken care by the service provider. And that kind of security is provided by them.
That also falls in the same cloud computing concept.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I have a question. Like you partially answered the question by talking about multi-tenancy. When we're talking about something like Lotus Notes, where you're giving an email and there's a lot of security required. So in case of software as a service where you have multiple tenants, and like for example, if you are using Lotus Notes and I'm also using Lotus Notes, how do I ensure the security of my data?
See, at the ground level, at the developer level, because I have myself provided multi-tenancy for our database called gas and services distributed. So we, segregate the data, we build on some keys. So internally it's stored that way. It will never happen that a person X is going to access his mail and he gets the mail from person Y. So they are not going to gobble up anyway. So it is taken care at the development level that we have certain unique keys which are associated with the user. So the data are totally segregated. And that also comes in the SLA, that the security thing or reliability thing also comes in the SLA. So that never happens. Is that what you're going to you're wanting to ask? So,
So in Google Docs, cloud engineering,
Google what?
Google Docs.
You want to talk?
Yeah.
Google
Docs.
Google Docs.
Google Docs.
Google
Google
Docs.
documents are being used.
Like,
Oh, Docs, I heard Docs, sorry. Yes, yes. Gmail is also on cloud. Google Docs is on cloud. Google Apps is on cloud. So these are all on cloud. Facebook, everything. They use a lot of cloud computing concepts.
So what is it? You know what? The concept I talked about sharing clients. How does it differ from the hosted services?
Generally, if they have a dedicated server as well as the cloud server. If I have a dedicated server, many of the clients are using that server. So if I move to the cloud, I have to pay the services for the cloud, for the software, and each and everything. If I have by a dedicated server, it is a one-time cost.
No, it's not a one-time cost. Buying is one-time cost, but it depreciates, right? You have to give maintenance cost. You have to give licensing cost. All that are also there.
It's one time.
It's
For
not one.
example, I have buy a server for 5 years,
Yes.
and I'm thinking that for 5 years my server will perform well.
Are you
all the-
sure that you don't require, you don't need to scale?
No, for performance only I have scale. For example, today I have scale, and I have perspective of future 5 years. That this server will fulfill all my requirements for 5 years.
Right.
the cost of maintenance and per year, all the things I counted X amount. And if I go in the cloud, that would be much higher, I think so. I'm not
No, it
sure about
depends.
the cost.
I mean, we cannot comment saying that it will be higher or it will be lower. It depends on case to case. So not every company will go on cloud. So you need to basically calculate that are you going to scale, what is your requirement. If your requirement is abrupt, like, usually in IT companies it happens. You cannot predict that the project is going to come, it will surely come. Or if I'm today using 100 resources, hardware resources, I'm not going to scale to 200 or maybe come down to 50. So you need to somewhere draw a line that, okay, this is the cost I'm incurring right now and for another 5 years, and does it help if I go to cloud? So that analysis has to be done by the individual.
Maybe say, let me also help answer it in a very simplistic term. Suppose you want to basically buy this building versus lease this building. Look at everywhere, almost IT company says that if I have to incur, even in the real estate business, buying a real estate would be much simpler because in that case it appreciates. Rather than that, how much time do we actually use our mobile phone? We say that every 2 years, every 1 year we have to buy a newer model. Similarly, in IT and hardware and software, the cost really depreciates, it never appreciates. So if you are basically having an upfront cost versus basically a cost which you can spread it over a time and you are leasing out, you are basically paying it as you use and paying it as much as you use. If you use more, you pay more. So for example, when we are talking about having 50 Lotus Note users, rather than basically going for 50 Lotus Note user clients and paying that much upfront cost for Lotus Note, basically server, hardware and everything, here we are talking about basically paying $10 per month and Lotus Note is all installed for 50 users. So for 500 users, if $500 is my cost. Rather than that, if I have to buy, I have to invest basically 50 lakh rupees worth of things. So look at the cost differential here.
And secondly, means like it's not our liability as well.
It's not our liability.
Security will be compromised, no?
They
No,
will be
no.
done. Yeah.
Security will be compromised
See,
because
there are certain costs.
for our server, we have dedicated server, we have our own data. We know that this data is used for this X customer, this data is for Y customer.
No, we have something called private cloud also.
So
So
that
that private cloud is very much secure because it is inside your company premises and controlled by us. There are pros and cons basically.
Like you were saying earlier, you have to do the multi-tenancy, what happens? And like, there are multiple customers very similar services from, you have dedicated SLA, which govern all customers.
Basically, these things are being taken care, but cloud is a concept that is still evolving. So as and when it grows, there are other factors which are going to come and they are going to make it more secure. So it depends on the individual and the kind of data you are storing. If you are very, very apprehensive about storing it in a public cloud, you can go ahead and store it in a private cloud. That's also possible.
Yeah, I was thinking you discussed about Google and Facebook having their own, they are using a cloud approach. So is that they are dependent on some vendor or they have their own vendor?
Google has its own cloud.
Okay,
Now, Facebook is definitely depending on a vendor. So you can either have an in-premise cloud or you can buy services from somebody else. It really depends on what is your requirement.
What are the architectures which are built under cloud? Like we have SOA and cloud. So is there anything, are there any
SOA is not cloud.
We use web services in cloud. Now, see, when we define a service, we can define the kind of architecture we are going to use. So we have, for example, when we had used Hadoop, it's a client-server kind of an architecture, but a distributed one. So that's one thing. We can use web services, offer web services, that's also possible. So it depends on what kind of architecture am I creating for my service.
So what are the factors which make you decide that we take these architecture?
That depends on the requirement. So,
model will
yeah. So I'll basically explain what kind of services we have in cloud. So broadly, we have divided into 3 categories. One is software as service, we just talked about it. Okay, then we have something called, I'll just explain IaaS first, then come to PaaS. So infrastructure as service is simple terms. I'll say I need these number of machines. Okay, that's my requirement. And I specify this is the Linux version which I require, this is the RAM, this is the speed of the machine, CPU, whatever. So I just define everything as a template and I get my infrastructure. So that's IaaS. That is what is provided by Amazon primarily. The EC2 with I think you must have heard about it, elastic cloud computing. So that's what Amazon is providing, okay? And it is providing storage. So storage is also kind of IaaS, because I'm providing storage as a service, okay? So that's S3 of Amazon, simple storage service. Then let's come to PaaS. This is the area where I'm currently working on. So PaaS is basically providing an entire environment to the user so that he can create his application. So if I give you an example, if I want to use WebSphere, I want to use DB2 as a backend. So PaaS will be, I'll provide a combination of WebSphere and DB2 to you. So what you do is when you create a service or say I want the service, you just give the EAR or WAR file or whatever for your application. It gets deployed on the web service. There's a connection created with the DB2, and you can just log into your application and operate it. So you don't have the hassle of creating the entire environment. So basically, providing an environment to the user is what platform and services. Okay. So now again we have a lot of players in that: Microsoft Azure and Amazon and Salesforce. Salesforce is one of the leading ones in PaaS. Okay. So these are the players. Now we can say this is a broad category. Then there are many things like some people categorize storage as services differently. Then you have desktop as a service, and there are n number of things. But broadly this is what it is. Okay. Now like I was talking about, there are deployment models. So you have private cloud, public cloud, and hybrid cloud. So as the name suggests, public cloud is what Amazon is offering. So you just go and buy the services, but it's public. So there are many users who are sharing the same cloud. Although there is a guarantee that your data is not going to get mixed up or there would be no breach of security, very well there in the SLA. But then if people are skeptical of putting their data, especially say banks or the data which are very critical, so they opt for something called as private cloud. So private cloud is you will have a cloud setup inside your premises. Okay? So that will be a private cloud, and there can be a combination of both. So you can go for private cloud as well as public cloud. So for critical data you use the private cloud, and for data which is like you can keep it on a public cloud, so you use a public cloud. So that makes it known as a hybrid cloud.
So I have a question. Can I take a cloud space and install my own software which I want?
You mean you rent Amazon services? You take a yes.
I just need a space,
Yes.
and I have my own softwares. Okay, I want to install them and I want to use them,
Okay, so you
and rather than taking them from them.
yeah, you can buy the infrastructure for example a VM, and then you can play with that.
Okay,
I have personally done that. I bought a VM and then played with Hadoop, installation of Hadoop.
cool stuff. Okay,
For R&D purposes.
okay.
Yes.
Right.
Not the rack space, but the actual machine. One single machine. Virtual instead of only one rack. See, that is where the difference is. In data centers, you can actually have to lease a rack. Then you have to install your own servers. And here you are talking about just you need one server. They are going to designate this virtual machine, which is designated server for you, with the IP address which you can access, host, everything you want to do.
Yeah.
So you'll get a public IP, you just access that machine and play around with it. That's possible.
Since you have done it, how much does it actually cost to lease basically a 4 GB machine?
No, when I did it, I did it from the office, so it was paid by them. And what they did was, I just told them that my requirement is that I want to buy a VM, and it was taken care by them. So I really did not pay from my pocket.
But any rough idea how much would
But
it?
it is usually, $0.4 cents, $0.4 for 1 GB. And then it depends. If I go for elastic load balancing, then they charge you extra.
Okay.
If I go for, backups in another availability zone, there are n number of options.
Okay.
So then they charge you another extra buck. So otherwise, it's very cheap for even a individual person to take a VM on the cloud and play with it. It's very cheap. When you actually operate on large scale, then you need to think about these things like how much data I'm actually transferring, what kind of backup I'm taking.
So are there any URLs you would be sharing with us? Any URLs?
URLs for study.
You're not studying, going into and
Buying.
applying for it, buying stuff?
I can do that.
Okay, thank you very much.
It's just when you go to Amazon Web Services, they have a login facility. You go, you create accounts in EC2, you create accounts
Oh.
in Amazon.
When I go to the Amazon, I can only see books.
I'll share. Amazon Web Services is a different.
Okay.
I'll share the URL.
Thank you.
Okay, so how much time do we have? Can we go into her?
Yeah, please.
We have, take your time.
So this is one particular area which I have worked on. It is very interesting to me at least. Okay, so this is for data storage in cloud. So the kind of application I did was, we had petabytes of files which even scale, which cannot be stored on a single machine hard drive also. It was so huge. These are log files basically from the actual cloud. So there are users continuously using the cloud. There are n number of logs being generated of huge size. So what we wanted to do was we wanted to do some kind of analysis on those logs. So like
Come.
So what we wanted to do was, we wanted a database to store these log files. Now relational database was not an answer for it, because it was semi-structured data, it was not a properly structured data one. Then I wanted it to be distributed, I wanted to parallel access to it, I wanted it to be fault tolerant. Now if I have a RDBMS kind of a structure, okay, I have a master DB, I have maybe a backup of it, so you will say I have a backup, so it's fault tolerant, right? But then, at what cost am I getting that? Because if I have a master running, and suppose the master goes down, so I have the slave, but then every time the data from the master has to be synced with the slave. Okay, that's the overhead. So instead of that, I wanted something which is distributed and fault tolerant. So we went for Hadoop. So the basic concept of Hadoop is distributing a file to n number of nodes. Okay.
In a clustered way?
Yes. I'll come to the architecture part. So it's basically an open source project by Apache, and it is used by very big clients like Facebook. Then Rackspace is using it. Then Cloudera, if you have heard about it, they are distributing Hadoop in a more managed way. So the kind of deployment we did, we actually went and downloaded a star for Hadoop, did all the setup, and it really takes a lot of time and effort and understanding. But if you use a Cloudera distribution of Hadoop, it is pretty simple. It's like they are providing the customized Hadoop for you, easy to deploy. Okay. So what it is when we have a huge file which cannot be stored on, say, a single physical machine, what I do is I divide the file into chunks of. So there is a defined default 64 MB for Hadoop. You can change it. Okay. So you divide the file into chunks and you spread it across the cluster. And then you have a master slave kind of a thing. So you have a master which keeps track of which block is placed on which data node. So you have a name node, this is the master, which keeps track where the data is stored, and there are data nodes, which are basically the workers, okay, which store the data. Now how is it fault tolerant? What we do is each block is replicated on a node. So if the file is say of 10 MB for example, okay, and we have 10 blocks of each 1 MB. Now I do not keep that 1 MB only on one data node. If I have 10 nodes in a cluster, I maybe replicate it to 3 nodes. So default is 3. You can increase it or decrease it as in when you like. I mean depending on your requirement. So what I do is each block is replicated on say 3 data nodes. So it is highly rare that all the 3 data nodes will go down at the same time. So what we have is we never have data loss as such. So only limitation is that single point of failure is the master. So as of now, Hadoop has that limitation. So if the name node fails, you don't have any way to track where your blocks are kept. Because the entire data of where it is kept is with the name node, the master. So that's the limitation. But otherwise, it is very fault tolerant and it's distributed, okay? And another advantage that it has is that we have something called MapReduce in Hadoop, which is parallel accessing of the data. So now if I have that petabytes of data stored across the cluster, I can parallelly access the data and it minimizes my time very much. Because otherwise if I start accessing it from one machine, it will take hours to read maybe 1 terabyte of file, days, not hours. But if I do it parallelly, it reduces to minutes. So that's the whole concept of having Hadoop.
So does it work in sync with the RDBMS or this itself is RDBMS?
No, it's not an RDBMS, it's a distributed database, so we don't need RDBMS, it's a replacement of that. So depending on our requirement, either we go for RDBMS, so we have services for DB2 and all,
Okay.
and similarly we have what we have created is a service for Hadoop. So if a user wants this kind of a fault tolerant system and he has huge files, so he can go
So
for
mostly it is not about basically having actual RDBMS setup, it is more about having some certain large files like streaming files you're talking about.
Yes, it's a streaming access
Okay.
in
So
Hadoop.
having large number of videos that
Maybe
you...
videos, images,
images.
there are certain companies who do face recognition using Hadoop.
Okay.
Like US government also uses internally Hadoop. There's a company, I'm forgetting the name, they have a setup of Hadoop and they actually use Hadoop for face recognition also. So it's possible for video files, image files, normal binary files or text files, anything. That's possible. Okay, and it's written in Java and it supports all the major platforms. So it's easy, guys who are familiar with Java, it's pretty easy for them to use. It has Ruby interface, C++ interface also, but primarily the program is being written in Java. This is the architecture I talked about. You have a master, okay, the entire metadata, like which block is stored where on which data node is at the name node. And the data nodes are buffers. So basically, you have replication on them, okay. So whatever is the client only communicates with the name node to know where the data is stored. After that, the name node doesn't come into picture. So the client and the data node interact. The reason being, if we interact with the name node via the name node, it becomes a bottleneck. Because there can be hundreds of clients accessing the cluster. So we bypass the name node after getting the information and just talk to the data node. Next. So this is what I talked about, like, what name node is, what it does, and what data nodes do. So as of now, the big limitation is that name node is a single point of failure. So if it goes down, we do have backups. Like we keep backups on a secondary name node, but it's not automated. Like if the name node goes down, we have to go manually.
What is the name node?
It's the master.
What does that mean? Suppose if I am saying that I have a streaming file, and like for example, I am actually showing the live telecast, for example, of the semi-final match between India and Pakistan. And whatever I am storing, say from Doordarshan, okay, there are sites people doing that in US or not.
So you are basically doing a replay.
I am doing a replay, illegal replay, okay?
Okay.
So I am storing in some kind of a server here. So how does things happen? Where does the name node is? What is the name node? Basically, it's going to replicate it. How does it happen?
Yeah, let's go back to the previous slide. Okay, so
Pardon me guys, I'm being critical here. So since you guys don't ask questions on slides like this, I ask this question on your behalf, okay?
I think the name node would only contains the location where it basically stores the data nodes, right?
it will not have data.
I know, I
If
understand.
it has data, then it's a
Because
problem.
I rarely, it's like it's my engineering subject, a distributed system. So I have studied in that.
No, name node is just for keeping metadata, okay? And it keeps it in the RAM, okay? So the RAM has to be used first
Right.
of all, because the access has to be fast. If I keep it in hard disk, the seek time, the fetching time, all becomes a bottleneck.
True.
Okay? So this is a client, say you are operating from the client, okay? And you want to fetch the video. The video is distributed here, divided and distributed on the data node. So what you do is you have certain API calls from it, basically a program, right, which you are calling. So on the user you have a UI and you say bring video. So it basically what it does, it calls the Java API, calls the name node. Talks to the name node, it's an RPC call. Okay, so it talks to the name node and says that this is the file I want. Now the name node goes and looks up where the file is stored. So that video file is divided into say 10 chunks and stored across these 10 nodes. Okay, so the name node returns the location to the client. So it says that node number 1, 3 and 5 has your video.
And then the actual call would be made.
Then the client gives a call to node number 1, node number 3 and node number 5 parallelly. Okay, and the video is fetched and shown to the user.
And how do I distribute it in various systems? Again, the same example. Suppose I am using a recorder for the entire match, and
Yeah.
there's a 15-second delay that people are okay with that in US.
Fine.
So what I do is actually have that match going live. I store it on basically some kind of recorder which is coming with all these Tata Skies and all, and then basically move that entire. I'm just asking a real problem here, and maybe we can all make money here, all illegal. So anyways, people are doing that. So I was talking to my friend, I was intrigued that how do they really do it. So this is the time actually, without having too much investment in the infrastructure, how we can use it as a cloud platform and solve it out. So we are talking about recording it. Now how do I actually put it across on a server? What exactly goes behind the scenes?
See, basically dividing it, storing it is not a hassle at all.
Okay,
It is done
automated.
by the name node. So basically, again, on the client side, I want to upload a video, okay? So from the UI, I just say, okay, record this video. In the backend, again, we have Java API, which will give a call to the name node and say that this is the file. So name node checks whether do we have a file with the same name, or the file is already created, all those checks are done. And then the name node returns list of data nodes on which the data can be stored. So again, the name node goes out of the picture after returning the data node addresses, like say 1, 5 and 6. So the client goes to node number 1, sends the data, and then it goes to node number 5 and 6. So everything is done from here through the Java API.
Okay. Another quick question. Say, suppose if I am hosting it and I say that this is my streaming file, which I am sending it to a user interface for Hadoop, it actually stores it on various data nodes, whatever they are. and then I would share basically a URL which is having a name node. That's what it actually would be supposed
No,
to
you will not share a URL of the name node.
Okay.
Again, maybe you will share it. You have a UI from where you are doing it. So
Yeah.
you will just share the URL for that UI. The user will go to the UI and say fetch.
Okay.
So as a backend, we are running programs
All
which are
right.
getting so we have APIs for Hadoop. Okay. So we just call them.
So
Then we can make it secure, login based,
हाँ.
payment based, and all this.
Everything is there.
name node is basically an index.
Okay. Name node is like an index.
Yes.
किधर रखा है और कहाँ से लेने का है. It's like that.
However, even when you are taking it back, you know, take to another data node like 157,
Yes.
because it is primary.
Yes.
How is it made? So there is a consumer order.
Yeah.
What is the
Basically,
logic?
yeah, like I said, there is map reduce. So it's another map reduce. It's a whole paradigm which is on top of Hadoop. So that's the person you can say, I mean, that's the framework which is responsible for doing all this parallel access. So, you know, that's a big topic in itself. To put it in short, what it does is it's a paradigm which understands that, okay, these are the nodes from which I need to pick up data, okay? So we have something called maps which are inputs to us. So we take those maps, we process them, we again provide an output which is taken by a reducer which reduces those outputs. So basically I can say if there are n maps, okay, if they produce an output, say n, the reducer combines those output and provides a single or multiple output depending on our requirement. So that particular thing which you are saying that, you know, combining of the video, that's done by the reducer. And this code is written by us.
I mean, under the runner in which is appears.
Yes,
I
yes.
mean,
See, it's a
bring a
program.
example.
Yeah, so it's a program. So basically everything here on in logical terms I'm explaining it as, you know, the data is coming parallelly, but ultimately it's a Java program. So we have something called a map, that's what I'm saying, and a reduce. Okay, so these are what I can say interfaces, and we have classes for that. So they have predefined methods in which I write my code to access the data. So
When you are uploading it, the data node take the name node, the data transfer to the same state, and then you distribute it.
Yes.
At that point, then you go to the master or something. There,
it's stored with the name node. How the data is stored, that is with the name node. Okay, so I'm the one who is actually coding that program to fetch the data or to distribute the data. So it is up to me how I distribute it and how I set it.
Like for an example, if you look at the TCP/IP protocol, we have headers and trailers. Now when we are sending a packet, we are setting certain values in header and trailers. So I think that concept is applied over here, wherein they basically check the header, look for the next available message coming over.
Yeah. And actually there are a lot of things here, but in short, this is what you know.
I know.
And
Right.
how it works. So this is, you
I have a
know,
question here. This user, just going back a bit, you were talking about, using Hadoop for
Six semester में इलेक्ट्रिक था
data up to 1 gigabyte or maybe
पूरा
Yeah,
पूरा नेम नोड उन्होंने
So,
बनाया हमने
where is the actual storage happening?
on the data node.
Now, I mean, where are these data nodes located?
See, we have a cluster of Hadoop. Okay. So we have a cluster of, say, for example, to
Are
give
these
an example.
physical devices?
Yes, of course, these are physical devices. These can be VMs. Physical devices is not necessarily a physical machine. These are VMs on one physical machine. So we have multiple VMs of which we have created a cluster. For example, I'll tell you Yahoo has a 45,000 node cluster for you.
Wow.
Wow.
So it manages that. So it's not entire one cluster. They have 3 clusters, but the entire Hadoop cluster is 45,000. And a 20,000 node single cluster for their R&D. So that kind of clusters are managed, and those are all VMs because we can't have 20,000 physical machines. So what we have racks of machines, but on those single machines, each and every machine we have multiple VMs.
So
That's how this
are
works.
these kind of, because we are talking about the data, are these something like, take libraries or this built libraries which are doing the data storage?
No, not library. See, the entire concept of Hadoop is what? Because I cannot store the entire file on a single machine, so I'm dividing it and storing it on multiple VMs. So I don't need a library per se. There are APIs to distribute and APIs to select the data. Okay? And we have APIs of Hadoop which we are using to do it. So you can say it's a Hadoop library. Library. Okay, so so this is just an example, whoever is using Hadoop. So Facebook also uses Hadoop. So the entire Facebook thing which we see, the data which is coming, is all coming from Hadoop. Okay. Then video and image analysis is done by New York Times. So there was a case study, I'm not remembering the exact figures, but if you search on that, you get it. So New York Times wanted to port their data to some system. So, people gave them estimations like it will take years to do it and all that. And they used Hadoop and it was within days. This is this kind of power Hadoop has. And the New York Times data generation is huge. In a day they generate TBs of data and stuff. Because data is coming from everywhere and a lot of data to be stored, a lot of archives. So they use Hadoop for that. These are some examples. Now the challenges which we face. Okay, so it was very, very difficult to do it at first because it's pretty technical and you need to go to the depth to see, how the things work, how the cluster is managed, and there are around 150 plus configuration parameters.
Wow.
And each parameter you change would affect another n parameters. So, we went and changed just the default block size and everything went down. So then we had to investigate what all needs to be changed along with this particular thing. So that was a big challenge for us. So learning the entire technology on our own without anything given, that was one. Because it's not that simple, that we just go and change the configuration parameter and it just works. So that's the reason Cloudera is coming up with Hadoop distribution. It is easier to deploy and manage.
Cool.
Okay. Then being a distributed environment, we actually do not know, as a person, it is difficult for me to track where my data is kept. The name node knows it. But going and reading the name node metadata does not give me anything. So that's one challenge which we faced. So when we had failures and when we had blocks which were corrupted, there is a mechanism in Hadoop to detect that corruption. But when we do it manually, it is just next to impossible. Okay. Then name node, if that goes down, then bringing up the secondary name node is a little bit of difficult task because there is a lag. The entire data is getting copied on the secondary name node, but there is a huge process for doing that, which is then automatically. But there is a time lag. If the name node goes down, there may be some amount of data which is lost. So you can't say that you have 100% recovery. Maybe it's 80%, 85%. It depends on when the task of backup was triggered. So that was one challenge, bringing up the secondary name node with the entire data. So we tried a number of approaches. We used the NAS to keep the data and then other stuff. Then I said the configuration parameters are too many, so that was a challenge. And failure scenarios handling was difficult for us. Then there is a problem that if the data node goes down, I need to add the data node manually. So right now there is no automatic provision to add a data node. So maybe they'll come up with that in next version, but as of now it's difficult. Then another thing is Hadoop works very well for huge files, which are less number of huge files. Okay. But if we have large number of files which are small in size, then it's not very efficient for Hadoop kind of a scenario. But we had such a case, so we had to tweak a lot.
It would take a lot of time to retrieve this.
Yes, and there are other issues because name node keeps an entry for each block, okay, and it takes 150 bytes for each entry.
Wow.
Now, if I have small files, the number of entries becomes huge, and my name node will go down. Yes. So I'm actually not utilizing the power of Hadoop. So best is you have limited, large files, but number of files.
Are there any parameters defined for judging what is the size of the file I should keep in Hadoop?
No. Only thing you need to keep in mind is that the default block, when I talk about MapReduce, there are certain constraints on that. Like, the map, as I told that there is a map function which processes data. So it sees to it that the map function where it is executing the entire data which it is taking is on the same machine.
Cool.
Okay, so if the file is too small, I'll have number of maps. Because you will have number of small files, you will have those number of maps in MapReduce, so those number of management issues. So there are other factors.
Okay.
How is the backup of data not managed?
Okay, so data node, you have a concept of two things. There is something called edit log, which maintains each of the transactions that we are doing, and there is something called a SS image. Okay, this is the image. Whenever the name node starts up, it takes the SS image and starts up. It's kind of in database terms, we take the backup. It's a schema which the database takes and then starts. Okay, so when the name node starts up, it has nothing in the memory. nothing to know where the data blocks are. So at that time, it takes the SS image which is there, previous SS image. Okay? If the fresh one is fine, we don't have SS image. If it is not, and there's a failure and we want to start it back, so it takes this SS image. Now there has to be a sync between the edit log and the SS image. So there is an entire process which is triggered on its own. So this SS image and edit log go to the secondary name log. It keeps the backup of that and then basically merges the edit log to the SS image and sends back the SS image to name log. So see, SS image is something which is static right now and edit log is being continuously updated. So I have to at some point of time sync these two so that next time the name log has the entire data. So that process is done automatically and that is done on the secondary name log. But then there is a time lag. So you lose some data as the name log goes down. This is how data node goes down is no problem because you have replication. The entire data is replicated somewhere else and the data node keeps sending heartbeats. So the moment the name node knows that this data node has gone down, okay, so what it will do is it will see the replication factor is being met or not. If not, it will replicate it on another node. So that can be done. Okay, these are some of the tools which Yahoo uses. Okay. I got it from net, the tools which they are using for testing because they continuously patch. They do some, from the last year till now, they have put 4,500 patches to Hadoop to suit their requirements because Yahoo has different requirements for servicing their stuff. Okay, so these are the tools that they primarily use. So they have something called Hudson which does the build automation. So they trigger build and do the testing. Then they have SPM and JIT, which is just a source code management tool. Okay, then ALT is used for build and dependency management. They have Checkstyle, which is a code standard checker. Okay, then Clover, this is for code coverage. Then Forest, this is for documentation. JDS is for tracking all the API changes they do. So they are continuously patching the things. Then they have Find Bugs, which is a static analysis to find bugs. Need to find out a little bit about in detail how this happens. JUnit they all know. For testing. Bugzilla, and this is for issue tracking. So if you actually go and search how many patches Yahoo gives to Hadoop, it's really amazing. The kind of work they are doing. Okay. Okay. So that was all about Hadoop and a brief introduction to now what cloud testing challenges are and how do we do it. Okay. So now what are the problems we have with this?
If the session was for 30 minutes, I am allowing to continue. Maybe what we'll do is we'll cut down our tea time. Is that okay? Yeah. So instead of basically spending time out drinking tea, we'll quickly have it in comparison. So we'll give say 10 minutes. Is that okay to cover this one?
Okay, so a traditional system, what kind of disadvantages we have? First is high cost and underutilization. So I have seen we have test environments, huge, pretty complex ones, and we use it maybe just before the release, okay? Not always. So they are just lying underutilized. And so the CapEx and OpEx both are high for that particular test environment. Then contention for environment. We have multiple projects which have typical scenarios for testing. So we have to have multiple setups. Or if we are sharing the same setup, again the problem comes, there has to be strict regulation and vigilance so that we don't one corrupt data of one environment to the other. That is one thing. Then the environments have to be managed. So in all, it's a complex task. Maintaining the environment, the cost associated with it, and then keeping vigilance in work. So all that can be reduced, as I explained, by using cloud computing. So you just go and you say, this is the environment I want, you use it, you release it. And you have different environments maybe for different projects. Or you have the same environment and multi-tenancies managed by them. Okay, so different kind of data managed by them. So it actually simplifies our job quite a lot. Okay, so now what is the importance of cloud testing? So if I have, say, an application in my environment, and I say that I have tested it locally, I cannot say that it will work in cloud. So this is wrong to say that everything works fine on my end, so it is going to work in cloud. No. It has to be tested on cloud separately because there are many other constraints. First, as I told you, one thing, the local setup, the applications are mostly single tenant. But when it goes to cloud, it has to be multi-tenant. So that is the perspective change for us. So that has to be kept in mind. Okay. What types of testing do we do in cloud? So you all are aware of these kind of tests. So just to put it down on the slide, it's system integration and user acceptance. This has to be done to see whether it is meeting our functional requirements or not. So basically everything that you do locally to test has to be done on cloud with some extra things. which we need to keep in mind. Then we have interoperability and compatibility. So now we need to check whether if this is working with this particular cloud service provider, it should work with somebody else also. This shouldn't happen that today when I'm working with Amazon, for example, and later on I shift to Microsoft service provider, my application just breaks. It doesn't run. So that shouldn't be the case. So that should also be tested. Okay. Next. Yeah, stress and recovery testing. So this is basically testing the failure state. So if my system crashes, what is the way to recover and backups and stuff. Then security testing is very, very important because we are sending data over the internet, okay, and bringing back. So that is also to be kept in mind. And the application has to be tested. The data which we are sending has to be tested for security issues. Then we have performance and load testing. So this is like what we do normally in local environment also. So the business requirements have to be tested.
So for load testing and performance testing, can we use our tools like LoadRunner and all on cloud?
Yes. The tools which you are using locally is just that you are using it on a VM on cloud, but it's a machine where you are testing. Then test environment, that is also equally important because you can either have a cloud which is in-house, like I said, a private cloud, or you can choose a service provider. So you have to decide on what kind of test environment you want and where you want to test it. Okay, so there are many cloud providers. Now, it depends on which one you choose. More or less the services provided are same. So it depends on the billing and stuff, what you choose. Okay, now there are certain special considerations as in which is irrespective of the application you are using or the cloud service provider you are using. So special consideration is like you have to support multiple browsers. So that has to be tested. Okay, the user session management related issues, then testing against security issues, multi-tenant environment. So these are common across any kind of cloud service provider. Now the challenges we've already actually discussed all this, but this is just we have dependency like I think somebody said, you said that the speed and all this matters. So actually it's a challenge. So it depends on the kind of network bandwidth we have, the kind of internet connection we have. So that's one challenge. Then multi-tenancy is one challenge. You have failover scenarios. So sometimes we do not have automated backups coming up or things. So that is a challenge. Security is a very big challenge because we are sending data across the net. We have to test all the layers basically. Sending data across the network here, it has to be tested. The server performance has to be tested. Database has to be tested. So basically everything which we do in a local environment, it's there, plus some additional things that needs to be done. Okay, I think that's all. So,
Thanks.